ask you, what does leadership look like when everything around you feels unsettled? Because in those moments, leadership is not about having all of the answers. I know. It's actually about how you show up. Do you lead with chaos or with calm? Do you reach out? Do you react from a place of fear or respond with intentionality? Tonight's conversation is about a leadership posture that is often misunderstood. Calm leadership is not passive. It's not avoidance. It's not silence. Calm leadership is anchored. It's intentional and it's steady in the face of uncertainty. And that kind of leadership becomes the emotional thermostat for your entire organization. Because when teams are overwhelmed, when burnout is real and morale is fragile, leaders are faced with a choice. Do you match the chaos or model something different? Tonight, we're actually talking about what it means to choose differently, to actually dig into a place and get anchored, to lead with consistency when everything is changing, to lead with empathy when emotions are high, to make decisions that won't please everyone, but still protect the people and your mission. This is not theoretical leadership. This is lived leadership. So if you are actually navigating uncertainty, fear, constant change, if you are rebuilding after disruption, if you are trying to lead others while still holding on to yourself, lean in, because calm leadership might just be the most powerful strategy you have right now at your fingertips. Let's talk about it. What's making strong leaders in this season? Leadership is influence. It's rooted in the responsibility you take. You pay attention to the patterns, your calm, your strength, your hope. It's all integrated. We are living in a time where trust is fragile and people are watching not just what leaders say, but how they decide. Integrity is not optional anymore. Obedience is going to cost you. In this season, we're not just flipping adversity. We're forming leaders who can carry what comes next. Leaders from across all dimensions of fields and spaces, they're going to come together to give you the best of their wisdom. And I want you to leave each episode with a call to action. That's the work, that's the calling, and that's the conversation we're stepping into together. Excited about this conversation because I watch this woman in different spaces and just admire how she holds her peace. And so when she said yes to be able to talk about how do leaders contain and hold their calm even when things are uncertain, when she said yes, I was like, all right, let's go. So I have been posting all week about my source. She is on with us on the flip side. So let me tell you a little bit more about her. Shakira Smith is a dedicated educator, leader, and public servant with over 20 years of experience, currently serving as Chief Operating Officer for Young Scholars Charter School in Philadelphia and Paul Robeson Charter School in Trenton, New Jersey. She has held a wide range of roles, from teacher to principal to executive leadership, specializing in school culture, operations, and creating high-quality, supportive environments for students and staff. a proud Temple U graduate, yeah, TU, and active member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Shakira is deeply committed to empowering students, strengthening communities, and leading with purpose and impact. So welcome to the flip side of adversity, Shakira Smith. Yes, and the crowd goes wild.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad that you said yes. I think this conversation of how do we hold on to our calm when we are navigating post-pandemic and continuing to experience chaos, change, uncertainty. And I guess I want to jump in by first just asking, how did you find yourself in leadership? And how are you defining leadership for yourself?
Thank you.
I know. I'm just starting right at the top.
Deep question, yes. I've really been a leader kind of all my life. I feel like I've had a natural leadership that has just been tapped from when I was younger. So from being in Girl Scouts to, in high school, captain of the cheerleading squad and in a lot of different clubs and student leadership positions. By the time I got to Temple, I became a resident assistant. I was on the executive board for main campus program board. So I think I have just naturally gravitated towards leadership opportunities because I really do enjoy being able to help cultivate things, to systematize things, to bring order and structure to things, and to also be able to hand it off to the person that's coming in behind me. So if there's just a way to make things better, improve upon, I try to leave that impact so that as I move on or move up, somebody coming in behind me can really hit the ground running as well. So I describe my leadership just in that way of really looking at it as an opportunity to contribute. And that's my goal. I'm not looking necessarily for the power or for, I think a lot of people think leader is like, oh, you want this power. And I'm not looking for the power. I just want to contribute. I want to make things good.
That's that level of servant leadership that allows people to feel safe and to be able to identify how they also can contribute, because there's not this power struggle, but it sounds like you incorporate empowerment.
Yes. And that's important because leadership can be lonely, especially as a school leader. Oftentimes you are, considered at the top. And so trying to create more of a fluid leadership structure where it's not top to bottom and bottom to top, but it's more cyclical of how can everyone also contribute and find their role in their leadership. I think it makes it more manageable. And it also helps other people then find their leadership as you're looking to fill roles and fill gaps. So I do always look for how can I make somebody feel like I have a voice here, I can contribute here. As a leader too, I have to make a lot of the decisions, but I need people to tell me, give me your feedback, give me your ideas. I can't make decisions that aren't being influenced by the group. I can't only make decisions based on what I think, because sometimes what I think may not actually be what's best for the group. And especially in a school, I can't do that. So I do try to make sure to take stakeholder feedback. And then ultimately when the decision is made, I make sure that people know what was considered and how the decision came about.
Yeah, you finish the loop, which everyone doesn't always do, because I coach leaders and I'll ask them, so after you ask them and you went and made the decision, did you close the loop by actually going back and giving them feedback on what you took and even why something may not have been able to be implemented? But I've run into leaders who are exhausted because they are at the top and they are trying to manage all of it at the top by themselves. What do you say to that leader?
I say, you have people around you for a reason. And I had to learn that too, though, because I think originally I was somebody who was like, I have to do it all. It's on me. This is my role, right? And what I realized was when people are asking you, do you need help? What do you need? How can I help? And I was one of those, I've got it. No, I'm okay. And now I'm a, yes, you can help. Can you do this? Can I get you to, finish this spreadsheet? Can you run these papers? And they feel included.
Yeah.
And so I think recognizing as leaders that you really do have to include other people. It's not all on you. It should not be all on you. And then ultimately, when things go well, everybody feels good. And if something doesn't go well, people don't just blame you. Everybody looks at like, okay, how could we have done this differently? How could we have done this better? And I think it just creates that inclusion where you're not isolated. It's really hard to be an isolated leader. And that's something that I had to learn because I think earlier, especially in my school leadership, I was like, no, I have to do this. I have to do this. And I was like, no, I have a team. There's a lot of people here. They're being paid well. Let's all do our part. And that has helped me tremendously. And then I think for the health of the school, it has helped the school tremendously.
When people are sometimes in such a chaotic state, I've watched leaders kind of close up and get tighter and try to hold on to things tighter because of the chaos. But what I just heard you say was to, even as there are multiple things coming, to actually, instead of get tighter, identify who you can connect with to bring in. But that's a maturity thing.
Yes.
As a leader.
Yes, it very much is. And you have to realize that, again, people want to contribute. They want to feel part of a team. And when you have all of these stakeholders, if you're not utilizing them and making them feel part of the team, then they also can disengage and disinvest. And I think for myself as a leader in the beginning, I don't take a lot of days off. I'm like, I need to be here. But there's a lot to be said when you can take a day off and things don't fall apart.
Yeah.
And that's because you have created the culture and the environment where everyone is doing their part. And even in your absence, it doesn't fall apart. Yeah. And that's very important for sustainability, especially in today's climate.
Well, let's talk about today's climate. We are 4 years out from the peak of the pandemic. And when you think about what impact are you actually still feeling in your students, in your teachers, and in your leadership? I know I gave you a whole book worth of a question, but I just had a conversation with a table of moms last night talking about that the pandemic itself may be over, but there is still residue living in us, in our bodies, in our nervous systems, in our culture. Yes. Can you unpack for us from your lens, what impact are you still experiencing?
Yes, we just had this conversation even at school recently. My middle school is grades 5 through 8. Our 5th graders were in kindergarten or pre-K at the time that the pandemic started. So their earliest years, 5th and 6th grade, their earliest years were virtual. Imagine kindergarten virtual, right? We know that it wasn't really successful. And we know for parents, working parents who really couldn't be home with their kids to make sure they're on the computer, practicing the skills, doing all the things, that was the most hurtful thing that could happen to kids. And then 1st and 2nd grade, they're going back, maybe still virtual, maybe hybrid, school closures because COVID outbreaks. So that K to 2 was very disruptive for the kids who are currently now in my middle school. A lot of them don't have basic reading skills. We're used to middle school where you're developing reading comprehension, but the kids are coming in as readers. They might not be fluent readers, but they can read. We're now seeing kids who really can't read at the middle school level to where they should be. And so the impact on teachers, they're middle school teachers, they're secondary certified. they're not trained to teach kids how to read. That's not their expertise. So now the teachers have to learn how to teach the kids at a level lower than what their actual certification and expertise is. So that's difficult. And we're seeing teachers feeling defeated.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to teach kids who are nowhere near where they're supposed to be coming to us, right? The kids, it's not their fault. They're coming to school. They're excited to be in school. And so we're also trying to find ways to celebrate them and their growth because they're so behind, but they're aware that they're not where they're supposed to be. So it's just really hard right now
That's
to
complex.
deal with all of, the residual years of the pandemic. I think we live in a world now where it literally is before COVID and after COVID, right? And we're going to be in this after COVID context for quite some time. Because again, the students who are now in middle school, that K-2 experience is going to follow them probably through high school. So there are a number of years before we really get out of the impact that it had. And then again on the teachers, because I don't think that colleges are probably preparing teachers that are in ed programs now to expect that, yes, you're getting this secondary education certification, but you should probably also study take some early elementary classes because you may be teaching basic math or you may be teaching basic reading. So there's just a lot of complexities there that I think we're trying to navigate, things that we just were not prepared for. It's not what we're studying.
Right.
So.
And you talked about how there is not only the impact on the students themselves, but also the emotional and professional impact of the educators. I'm wondering, because this conversation is so big and it has far-reaching impacts, what are some things you're doing as a leader to either address, course correct, or even stabilize what seems to be a really complex but emotional time?
I think, we're trying to revamp the school experience and really bringing kids back into the joy of school and bringing teachers back into the joy of teaching. There's a teacher shortage. Leaders are even exiting at really high rates because education has become very difficult. It's become a lot in terms of what schools are expected to do. We learned from the pandemic when they said, pack up and just teach online, as if that's what we were trained to do. And lead online, observe your teachers online. It's like, nobody's trained for this. But we did it. And it just tells you a lot about what educators are capable of.
Yes.
Because we really made it happen.
The resilience.
But it was not anything that we had planned for. And I think coming out of it, it's like, okay, how do we get out of this? So we've done a lot to just try to revamp what the school experience is for middle schoolers. We've done everything from even changing our logo, our uniforms, doing some renovations in the building to just make the school feel better and warmer and, more comfortable. And so really thinking about how can we make sure that this is a place that people want to come back to, especially after having been home and behind screens for so long. So, and I think we're still working on that. Kids want to be active. They want to be outside. So we created a better outdoor environment for them. Even things as simple as cell phones being away, right? And limiting the technology so that they can learn the social skills that they missed during those 3 years that they were behind screens and online, and helping the teachers to just navigate that, create space, giving them space, right? Because we did years of curriculum, the test, get the test scores up, and we're still there. But now it's okay to say, make space in your class for social emotional learning. Make space in your class for kids to engage and talk to one another and learn the social skills and the soft skills that they don't have. If you notice somebody say something that was not kind, stop your lesson and address that. Circle up the class, do the restoratives, and giving the teachers that space for that. They appreciate it because for many years they felt like there wasn't time to do that because we have got to get through this agenda and this curriculum and take this test. And now I think there is a lot more emphasis on the whole child
Yeah.
and the teacher's ability to navigate that and incorporate that in their classrooms.
I know we're talking about schools and classrooms, but I am actually hearing some really foundational, transferable leadership skills in what you just explained. So, regardless of the field or the industry, acknowledge that people are different. Don't continue to try and make people who have been impacted from the nervous system out fit back into a mold or an environment or a process that actually is no longer relevant to who we are today.
Correct.
Release that grip on the way we've always done it and embrace the fact that you can be innovative.
Yes.
Leaders can remind their teams of why they chose that field, why they chose that career. Remind them, get them back connected with the original love
Yes.
for whatever the position, the career is, and allow there to be space for human interaction.
Yes.
Those are all transferable, universal practices that if a leader allows themselves to become really attuned to what's happening around them, it can really allow an environment to make the pivot that's actually necessary.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. What about parents? Are you having conversations with parents around really understanding who their young people are in this at this one? Well, first of all, middle school is hard. Let's just be honest. Middle school itself is hard.
Yes.
But now to add all of these other complexities, are you having conversations with parents to understand this as
Yes.
well?
Yes. I think one thing that I pride myself on at my school, both of our schools have been very engaging with parents and always keeping parents engaged. And so even prior to the pandemic, we communicate so much. You know, emails, papers home, Friday folders, invite them in for workshops, celebrations, just all kinds of opportunities. We're saying to parents, come on in. Phone calls. I will make phone calls first thing in the morning, last thing at night. And so even now, it's that same communication. But what we're also doing now is having to really remind parents to check those book bags. Don't give the kids that independence that you think comes with middle school. Actually double up on checking the book bag, looking for the papers, asking about their grades, because sometimes they get to middle school and you want to let go. You want to give them a little independence, and that's not where the independence should come. So stay involved, stay engaged. And so that's a lot of the reminders now, is just saying, get that book bag that's in your house is yours. Get those papers out. Read, what's going on at the school, because we do send a lot of communications. But parents know they can reach out. They have access to our online portals to see how students are doing in class. So keeping them engaged is extremely important. Telling them about their reading levels and their math levels, and helping them to understand what strategies they can support their students with. Parents will reach out and ask for what additional supports can they provide for their students. We have so many opportunities and access to different platforms, so we'll give them each of the options and say, here's where your student is. They can try, some extra time on IXL, or, some extra time on ExactPath. And we show them how to track that and maybe tie an incentive at home to it. And so we really do try to give them some strategies of, like, this is what works for us in school. And so if you try that again for the students at home, then we can definitely see some improvement.
So I'm curious, because I know that there are some leaders that I'm trying to reach the parents, but they won't come. They won't communicate back. what are some things that you've really found as a leader to be most effective to really break down that word engagement?
Yes. I think as a school leader, I recognize first that when parents send their kids to us, they are trusting us. And that trust is so important that we have to be careful not to do anything that could jeopardize that trust. And so there was a time where I can remember being like, oh, the parents aren't engaged enough. And then you have to think about, well, they're working. They may have multiple children, not just the one child or the two kids who are at our school. They're managing a number of things too. And again, they're trusting us at the school that we're providing their child the education that they need. So what we really try to do is scale down what you really need to know and really need to do to be considered an engaged parent. And that's that Friday communication that we send home. You read and sign that piece of paper, you are engaged. You know what has gone on with your child for the week. It's the permission slips for events. It's coming in. We have, 3 assemblies. Come to those 3 assemblies. You're engaged. I think the more we can make it feel digestible,
Yeah.
then parents can feel like they are truly engaged with the school without feeling overwhelmed by the school, and they trust us that we're doing our part, and we're keeping their student safe, we're educating their student, we're getting them on the right track. And if a student is not on the right track, then that's when we really make a more personalized touch point to the parent, and that also makes it manageable for us, and me as a leader. I can't call 300 parents a day, but I can call, 10 or 15. And then accessibility. I have had parents say, I called your office. You're never in your office. And I said, well, there's no classes. No school's not in my office. So you're right.
Right.
I'm
I'm with your students.
And then I said, but here's my cell phone number. Because actually, if you call my cell phone, you'll reach me or text me and I will respond. And then next thing you know, I'm sending so many texts, just a snapshot, a picture of a report. And they're so happy. They're like, this just made me so happy. So very, micro moments can really have massive impacts. And as a leader, where your time is stretched so thin, so, 5% of my time being spent on parent engagement, but that 5% is so meaningful to ensure that the parents feel like they know what's going on inside the school.
And they feel heard.
Yes.
And you use the term micro moments, and it happens one moment at a time to continue to reinforce that my trust is in the school, but they also value my time. They pay attention when I have a question, and the opportunity to really forge a reciprocal relationship back and forth.
Yes.
I love it. So what are the biggest challenges, in your opinion, for school leaders during the current uncertain, constant change?
I think the teacher shortage is definitely something to, really be aware of. People are fleeing education, and that's really unfortunate. And a lot of that really does have more to do with political matters and not necessarily specifically the school or education. And so that's just really unfortunate. And as school leaders, a lot of what we're dealing with is around retention and keeping good teachers and doing everything we can to ensure that the current teaching force that we have is not looking to exit and does see it as a sustainable long-term career and can, do it for 20 or 25 years. I've had people say to me, how have you been in this for 20 years, especially middle school?
Right. That group.
And, I say, I really believe in what we do. And every moment isn't a happy moment. It's a tough job. But if you truly believe in what you're doing, it's worth it, because later on down the line, particularly for me, I've had students who have come back right? And so to come back to middle school, and most people don't go back to their middle school. So when people come back and visit a middle school and tell you about the impact that you've had on them, and they're now in high school or in college or have graduated and they're in their careers, and they still point to their middle school experience and they point to me, and that makes me really stick around and stay fulfilled. And so I try to encourage leaders now to stick around. It's not instant gratification, but there is gratification in the long run, just in terms of recognizing the impact you're actually having. Because you don't always feel like you're effective. You don't always feel like you're having an impact. But when that comes, I can think about a student who came back, and this was probably on a day, I kid you not, it was a day that I was just like, I am done.
Mm.
And a student came back to visit, and somebody came and got me and said, there's a former student out here, and this student was not the easiest student. But here she is 10 years later telling me how she has just started her teaching career and telling me how she uses a lot of the things that I said with her students. And I said, oh, so you were listening?
Yes, yes.
But just hearing that, it was like immediately, I said, oh, you know what? Okay, I am doing something right. And so I always just tell teachers and leaders, just wait for that moment. It's coming. It's coming. And when it comes, you will be so fulfilled that it'll add 5 more years to your career.
You've already explained to leaders who are listening, and I have many clients who are school district leaders, administrators, who tune in and listen, and they're all talking about turnover rates and retention. And so you've already shared that one way that you support retention is reminding teachers why they got into the work itself. Are there 3 things that you could speak to leaders for them to think about, how do I create a culture that supports retention?
Yeah, I think it's definitely still like a work in progress. We're trying to figure it out. But I think one thing that I found that's been helpful is around the professional development piece. Teachers want to also feel poured into, developed opportunities to grow, creating like teacher leader roles in the school. We have teachers who are, coaching, or they're doing, they're supporting, like right now we're in our enrollment season, and we have a teacher that's helping with the enrollment campaign. And it's not her, primary function, but she was excited to be able to be tapped in to support that. So I think that is really important. It's just professional development and giving teachers more to be able to learn from and engage in and see opportunities outside of just their classroom subject. I think, again, the retention piece, really thinking about what all we're asking them to do. And as much as possible, just making the work sustainable. There's so many things. And now with the amount of, technology and just ways to simplify things, I think about how 20 years ago, my grade keeping and grading papers is very different from how teachers have to do it now, right? And so just helping them to have ways to make the work manageable, so that it does feel sustainable as you're, navigating all of the many things. And I think just listening. And I have always just said, tell me what you're thinking. There's no idea that's like, that you can't share, right? Every idea may not be able to be executed on, but still share your ideas, because you may have the idea that no one else has thought of, and it is actually the thing that we need. So share your ideas. Tell us what's going on. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? So I think as leaders, just listening. And if a teacher says to you, like, do you have a moment? Give them that moment. Because if they're asking you to talk, when they have a gazillion things to do, within your prep, you're trying to grade papers, call parents, use the bathroom, eat a little lunch maybe. So if they're asking you to talk or for 5 minutes, Give them 5 minutes.
You literally let my whole chest open up when you said the word listen, because I was actually in front of a group of leaders the other day, and we were talking about the power of listening to understand, not to be right or to move your agenda forward.
Yes.
And that in and of itself is an art.
Yes.
Because sometimes it's not about you fixing them,
Yes.
but it really is just creating space to understand
Yes.
and hear.
Yes.
The other transferable, so these golden nuggets for me, because I think about how regardless of your leadership position, you're giving us nuggets that are universal and transferable. The first part of, so oftentimes we are so focused on professional development that is about reaching a goal, and you turned it to where it's actually about how can they grow and allow them to really develop more of their growth plan than just meeting a goal or checking the box.
Yes.
And the opportunity for them to identify what else are they passionate about.
Yes.
And create space for that, so that they too are feeling like they are being poured into, but other passions have an opportunity to blossom as well.
Yes.
Nuggets that will I don't care what you are leading.
Yes.
They are relevant all the way across the board. So what personal emotions have you had to learn to navigate and lead through with others?
I mean, thinking back to the pandemic, fear, fear of how do we get this right? How do I get this right? There was a lot of nervousness, and I remember just being asked so many questions, and I was watching, the news, and I'm on these health department calls, and, I'm learning about what's going on, and I'm trying to communicate that information back out as well to the staff, to our students, and to their families. And it got to the point where I really was kind of the primary, health communicator of the school. So then I was like, okay, so I'm an epidemiologist. Right. Not a principal anymore. And it was a lot. And it was scary to think about, how do we bring kids back to school? How do we bring teachers back to school? And being on like the receiving end, when we even mentioned returning in person, the backlash. And I was like, guys.
The fear response.
Yes. And I said, the state is saying we have to return. Schools are reopening. But I also understood that people were scared. And I remember saying, okay, I have to approach this carefully. And we had each grade team of teachers come in before the students even came back. We just brought in every grade team, walked them through all the protocols, told them all the things that we would be doing, practiced taking the COVID test, because we were testing every day, weekly. And teachers, after each of those sessions, all said, like, I feel comfortable coming back now. I feel good coming back now. Thank you for doing this. And so we didn't just throw them in the deep end and say, school's back open, come back, put your mask on, come back to school. We were very intentional about providing them that opportunity to get through their fear. And I knew that they needed that, because I also needed that. I needed to know that my staff was not going to be scared, so that kids weren't scared, and kids could also come back and feel comfortable. And so we took our time to do that, and it made the reopening much smoother, much stronger, healthier. Everyone felt confident in our protocols and our cycles. But until it happened, I was just like, nobody probably knew. I'm saying this probably for the first time.
Because I'm like, you have one of those faces. I have watched it. I'm like, how is she like not? Like, calm. Like, I'm like, okay, it's going to be okay. Yeah.
And I think that's important. I always say, like, I have to maintain calm because I'm responsible for a lot of people. And there's the uh, quote about being the thermometer. And it's not be the thermostat, not the thermometer. And for me, that quote is really what often resonates with me. It's like, okay, I'm the thermostat. I need to control the climate of this room and not react, because how I react, people are looking to me for my reaction.
Yeah.
And then how I react is often going to indicate and dictate other reactions. And other reactions are likely to be 200 times,
Right.
on 10 than wherever I am. And so that's where a lot of that comes from, is just being able to maintain calm for the health of the environment, but still also be able to be vulnerable. After things like that happen, like, I can sit with, my staff and say, all right, guys, we made the impossible possible. We got through the scary moment, and really celebrate. But I think in the moments I'm just like, okay, you can't know that I am just all kinds of
on the inside.
Is this gonna go right? But when it does go right, great. And if it doesn't go right, I'm always taking notes in the back of my head. I constantly am revising things in the back of my head and writing it down, because I just feel like I'm never going to make that same mistake twice. So I'm not going to do the wrong thing again, right? So if something didn't go right, I have the notes to at least know how to do it right the next time, or pass it on to the next person who might be doing it, to say, hey, this is what I learned. This is how you should do it. If you need some advice on how to do things. So I think no matter what, I'm always reflective in thinking about how I am leading in the moment.
Yeah. Whether
it's successful or not.
The ability to create space for people to be able to acknowledge their fear and then walk them through a practice that grounds them, whether it is a procedural steps, or it is literally just being able to process the fact that yet another change or another wave of something, but you're creating the opportunity to say, I recognize that this is emotional, that there is emotion here, that we're not just going to grind culture past it. We're actually going to wrestle with it together. And while we're doing this, as a leader, I'm going to stay reflective on how I'm showing up, because I am a contagion. I was talking with a group of leaders the other day, in that recognizing that how we respond and we react creates a ripple, and the ripple never asks permission to spread. And so it's going to, so if we are being reflective in how we're showing up, but how do you distinguish between being reflective and bottling it up?
I think I wouldn't necessarily say, that I will, bottle things up. And so I think if I feel like I'm holding on to something, I have to figure out what is the best outlet. So whether it requires reflection, or if it just requires even just a break from it all. Like, there were
Your
moments,
walking pad.
My walking pad. And people who know me, anybody who knows me that's watching knows about this walking pad, that really, when I tell you, it's not just physical health, but my mental health. Because sometimes you also just have to, whether it's physical exertion, close the computer for 30 minutes, let your mind process and wander and do all the things that can clear it out and bring you back to whatever it is that you're, grappling with. I think that's really what I do, so that it's not just being bottled up and held in, because I do know that when that happens, that's unhealthy, and eventually that explodes, right? And it could explode at the wrong moment. One of the things that I'm always very, careful of, and I will even, say this to my team. Take a moment. We've teach students to do it. Teachers and leaders have to do it too. Take a moment. If a student was sent to me for a disciplinary reason and they're on on 10, go sit down. Take 5 minutes. Let me know when you're ready. I don't need to fuss at you, yell at you. You're not even going to listen. And so as adults, we are the same way.
Yeah.
And so sometimes things come to us and I say, I need to take a moment. Let me process my emotional reaction to that. And then let's address it. Let's talk about it. Because if you try to address things or talk through things in your emotional state, it doesn't really yield the results that you're looking for. And oftentimes, the way that somebody conveys something is often received more than what is even being said.
Absolutely.
So you could be saying the right things, but how you're saying it will absolutely influence how it's received. And so I'm careful not to miss that moment or mess that moment up. So I know if I'm like, okay, I need to work through my feelings first, and then now let's have the conversation. And I give people that same space and that same grace. I have never forced anybody to have a conversation with me in the moment if they're not ready. And that's important as a leader, because sometimes people, again, as leaders are like, we need to talk now.
And it's not going to be productive.
It's not going to be good. So, hey, we're going to talk, not right now. So then whatever it is we need to talk about will be addressed. But not right now, because I know that either of us or both of us are not prepared, right? And that is really important to be able to do, to, again, control the climate of the space in a productive way.
There are so many leaders who have sat across from me. I shared with you my goal is to have 47 conversations in 2026 with leaders who are actually doing the work, not just someone who's researching leadership, but they're actually walking this thing out. And multiple people have sat across from me who I have identified as leaders I want to have this conversation with. And many of them have talked about that pause when either they recognize that something has been activated in them, when someone is activated and they're yelling and they're like, we're going to pause until we're able, you specifically are able to have this conversation in a different way.
Yes.
And again, I think that points back to a level of maturity as a leader, that it doesn't have to be my way in this moment for integrity and dignity to be, to remain whole.
Yes.
To remain whole. That opportunity came in a conversation, our last episode with Iola Harper. She shared how she was encountering a staff person who often used yelling as their strategy to communicate. And she began to see herself come outside of her own character.
Yes.
And so she developed, we are going to pause.
Yes.
But she also in that conversation said that she believes as a leader, you have to have anchors that ground who you are going to be as a leader.
Yes.
If I would ask you, what are the anchors that ground you as a leader? What would you say maybe 2 or 3 of those anchors are?
It's a really good question. I do think maintaining being calm. And I think that is an anchor. And it's one that I've been able to kind of blanket out and create that culture. I had a parent, this is a parent who actually now works at the school, but at the time her daughter was a student. And she reflected recently on one of our first encounters where she came up to the school hot, just on
yes,
because something had happened with her child. And she came up to me during arrival and wanted to address it in the moment. And I said, I will listen to you, but I really need you to let me finish the arrival. You're going to wait for me up front. I will come and get you. We'll talk through it all because I need to be able to listen to you, and I can't right now because of all of the students who are coming in. And she was just upset and, no, this right now. And I said, I hear you, hear me, so that I can help you out. And so in reflecting on it, she said to me, I was so mad at you that day because I wanted to be mad and you wouldn't let me be mad. And you were just so like calm. And I was like, that's me. And, fast forward, oh my gosh, this has to be 15 years later. And she works at the school, but she remembers that. And she says to me, like, I love that about you. And I've learned that from you now in the role that I have, in that when parents are coming in hot, I have to bring them down.
Yes.
And let them know that they'll be heard, but they don't have to yell, scream, and, fuss. You'll be heard. So I think that's definitely my anchor, is just bringing a calm state in what can be a very chaotic environment.
Yes.
And it's just, why operate in chaos when you can operate in calm? You'll get better outcomes. You'll get faster outcomes. You'll get respectful outcomes. And so that's a huge anchor for me. Huge anchor for me. I think my other anchor is boundaries. And I'd set quite a few boundaries because as a leader, you're asked to do a lot. And so when you need, to separate or take a break away from something, I'm very clear about that. And I will say, listen, my door is always open. But when it's closed, and it's probably only closed for 20 minutes, and there's a sign that says, do not knock. Please do not knock, right? Because those 20 minutes can be the difference between my emotional and mental stability to continue to lead and provide what you need. And so creating those boundaries, even down to my cell phones. I have a school phone and I have a personal phone. And I've always given my staff both numbers. And I've said, here's the time to text me on or call me on this phone. Here's the time to text or call me on this phone. But if you're calling my personal phone, I really want you to think about, do I have to make this call?
Yes.
Is it an emergency? Because if you call me, I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to respond. I'm going to answer your call because I believe that you have an emergency. So please don't play on my phone.
Right.
Make sure, and they respect that boundary exists. And so sometimes it's not an emergency. So when I go check my work phone, that never goes upstairs. And I tell my staff that. I say, this work phone has never seen the bedroom. It stays downstairs.
I need you to say that again, too, because there's I have had conversations with leaders who literally cannot not have that phone right by their bed.
Don't do it. Because, again, the personal phone is for the emergencies, and the people who need that number have it, and they'll use it for the right reasons. But when I come downstairs and check my work phone, there may be 5 or 6 texts and a couple of voicemails, but they weren't important. They weren't emergencies, but they know that when I see it, I can respond to it, and that's no problem. And it doesn't interfere with when I'm on my personal time. And that, I think, again, sustainability in this work right now requires boundaries. It really does. And that's a huge, important part for me that I think people have really learned to respect. So just the calm anchor and setting boundaries as an anchor, because when I'm on, I'm 100% on.
Yes.
I am on. So when I'm off, if I'm asking for, a little bit of time off, and even creating those spaces. And COVID really did this because we were working at home and there was no off time.
There's no off. There was no off.
I felt it in those first 2 years. I was like, what are my work hours? I was working all kinds of hours from morning to night. And, you set up this home office now. And that's where I really said, this phone does not go upstairs. And so I know when I'm upstairs, that is Shakira. Miss Smith is downstairs, but Shakira is upstairs. And I just really had to create that boundary.
And the world keeps moving, even though the phone is not right next to your bed.
Exactly.
There's so much in that moment of, I know I teased you about the walking pad, but when we identify the things that will ground us as leaders to help us emotionally, mentally, that also sets an example for those who are following us.
Yes.
So if I don't have any boundaries as a leader, I'm also setting that example for those who are following me.
Yes.
And then don't be confused on why we're both dysregulated and can't find our footing, because we are mirroring one another's dysregulation and poor choices.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! I know we just stepped on somebody's toes, but it's gonna be okay.
Yes.
I cannot believe we are already at a whole hour.
Oh wow!
And I know it just went by so fast. I feel like somebody sped the clock up. I want you to speak to the leader. At the end of every episode, I always ask our leaders who sit in that chair to speak to a leader who by chance received this conversation. Someone sent it to them, and they are actually feeling like the chaos has gotten too much, and I need to give up. What do you say to that leader?
Wow. You know, I say to the leader who feels like they want to give up that this is a moment. And when you really think about the work that you're in and what you're committed to doing and what you believe in, that to see it through, any obstacles that get in the way are just that, they're obstacles. But the end result, the outcome, that is going to fill you up. And so no matter how empty your cup feels like it is getting, you definitely can look to the long run, the outcome, and refill your cup with each micro moment that gets you there. Think about what makes you happy, what brought you joy today, what brought you joy this week, what brought you to this work, and continue to lean into that, because it's never going to be easy all the time, but it's worth it in the end, because again, the outcomes, the impact that you're having, leadership is a calling. And so when you're called to lead, you really have to think about what your influence can be in this moment. And then in the long run, there are people who are going to come behind you and probably reference your leadership as what influenced them as they got into their roles and their leadership. So I just encourage any leader to stick with it, continue to do the work that you're doing, lean into your calling, and recognize that a lot of times we're doing work that, you know, it's meant for us to do. If somebody else was meant to do it, they would, right? But it really is a calling. It's meant for us to do. And I would not want to do anything else, because the impact is so great. And that's what I look for.
As we close tonight, I want to leave every leader with this truth. Calm is not something you find the moment that chaos shows up. It's something that you've actually built before. What we heard tonight was not just a leadership story, it was a leadership posture, a decision that remained anchored when everything else is shifting. To lead people while managing your own emotions, to make decisions without perfect information, and still stand in your integrity. Because leadership in uncertain times, it's going to stretch you. It will expose you, and it will ask you to give what you're not always sure you have. And yet, what Shakira modeled is that calm is not an absence of pressure. It is the presence of intentionality. We talk about burnout. We talk about criticism, and we all have been navigating constant change and still being able to have to steady the room. We don't have to have all of the answers, but you do have to be anchored. Anchored in your values, anchored in your purpose, anchored in how you are going to choose to show up. So here's your action step. Grab your pen. Let's get ready. Before the next moment of pressure comes, I want you to decide now what kind of leader you are going to be. What will guide your decisions? What is going to steady your voice? What will refill your cup? Yes, even when you're running low. Because when you cultivate calm within yourself, you actually create stability for everyone else around you. As leaders, in times like these, that's the kind of presence that is the most powerful. And it's not just casual, it's necessary. So are you ready to cultivate your calm way before the chaos comes in? We're continuing to have these conversations to support you as leaders, because the moment that you're in is not the moment that is going to break you. It is the moment that will introduce you to who you really are. So let's stay in it. Let's stay together, and let's stay connected. We'll continue our next conversation for you, the leader, who is not just surviving, but thriving on the other side of adversity. I'll see you next week.